Today I did something very silly. I was in a bad mood, and when on top of that my blood glucose levels went low, I tricked myself into eating a large bowl of yogurt with blueberries. Well, how stupid can you be? That is about 60 to 70 grams of carbohydrates. And look at what it did with my blood glucose levels. Within no time they went all the way up to 130, 140 and even 150. And although many doctors out there would still consider these values to be perfectly in range, for me they are highly unusual. And it took me about 2 hours and almost 5 units of fast-acting insulin to correct for it. I probably could have done a better job by pre-bolusing or by taking an intramuscular shot of fast-acting insulin in my shoulder that would speed up the absorption of insulin, but most likely that wouldn't have fully suppressed the glucose spike, and probably it would have actually resulted in a hypoglycemic event afterwards. So making small mistakes can lead to large consequences very easily, and that's a tough reminder again of how difficult it can be on a high carbohydrate diet to regulate your blood glucose levels. This becomes even more evident when you think about the fact that this bowl of yogurt with blueberries only amounted to about 500 calories, whereas a typical carnivore meal for me easily amounts to 1000 to 1500 calories, and I will only take about 3 to 4 units of slow-acting insulin for it. And my blood glucose typically stays in range very well. Of course, some people might say, well, you simply became insulin resistant. That's why it's so difficult to manage the glucose spikes from carbohydrates. I don't think so, because looking at the insulin intake, it's still perfectly fine. I take about 1 unit of insulin for 15 grams of carbohydrates. That's perfectly healthy. In my opinion, it's much better to look actually at the insulin to calorie ratio. And by looking at it in that way, since going on the ketogenic carnivore diet, I have actually become very insulin sensitive. Because now on a calorie intake of easily 3000 calories per day, I only require 20 to 25 units of insulin. Whereas in the past, on a high carbohydrate diet, I would easily require 30 to 40 units of insulin on a calorie intake that was probably a little bit lower. Well, what's the takeaway message of this video? It's very simple. Eat low carb.